As I briefly talked about in the New Hope video, I have a big problem with the return of the Jedi, which is the second Death Star. So, as I understand it, when they were shooting the first Star Wars movie, they didn't know if it would succeed or not. So they didn't know if they was gonna be able to make it a trilogy or if the dream will die with the first movie. So they had to make the first one a closed story, like a good standalone movie, and they would have to make it pleasing enough or like appealing enough to the audience, so they wanted more of it. And the way they did that was with the Death Star climax. So the first movie couldn't end in a cliffhanger. So they made Luke blow up the Death Star. So the movie could work as a standalone. So if it failed, we would still have a good movie to watch, and if it succeeded, we could make it a trilogy, and but like we would have time to figure out how to proceed with the next movies. Um, but then we get to the Return of the Jedi, which would be the actual climax of the franchise, and they chose to make it another Death Star, which is something that we see a lot in sequels. So we make a movie, which is a good standalone one, but then the studio wants to make more money with the franchise, but there is not much room for a sequel. So what they do, they just take the things that worked on the first movie and make them bigger and scarier and more powerful. And that's how I feel about the Return of the Jedi. They just grabbed the most menacing aspect of the Star Wars movies that we had so far and made it bigger, which is the second Death Star. And my problem with that is that it becomes quite repetitive. And they could have made it different. Like instead of being a second Death Star bigger and scarier, they could have made it like an Imperial fleet. So instead of the rebels trying to destroy this one target, there will be a lot of Imperial ships, and the rebels would have to fight against multiple targets. So that could have worked, but I don't know. That's not what we got, so there is no way to see if that would be better than a second bigger and scarier Death Star. And this pattern of repetitive stuff, it's kind of recurrent on the Star Wars franchise, but I think that in the Return of the Jedi it gets more evident. Like in the Phantom Menace, we have a Death Star too, but they changed it a little bit, which is the Trading Federation main station. So they changed the name. It's not a Death Star, it's a Trading Federation, and they changed the design a little bit. So instead of being just a ball, it have some stuff around it. But in the end, it gets it still gets blown up from inside out. But I can forgive in the Phantom Menace because it's besides having the same fate as the true Death Stars, it's a little bit different. They changed it a little bit. In the Force Awakens, we have a Death Star too, which is that big planet. So they took the second Death Star, made it even bigger, and called it a day. But on the Force Awakens, I can't forgive them too, because of the time gap between the Revenge of the Sith and the Force Awakens release. So there is this huge time gap where we didn't have any Star Wars movie. And the Force Awakens had the job of kind of revive the franchise and show it to a new audience. So they just grabbed the most, the biggest threat that we had in the entire franchise, made it bigger. So again, I can forgive them because of the time gap. But on the Return of the Jedi, there is no time gap, and it's literally the same thing, but bigger. Like, it has the same name, it has the same design, it has the same fate. So like, seeing that just 2 movies before kind of made it a little too repetitive for me. But that's just one aspect of the movie. So going to the movie, we start with the main cast trying to rescue Solo, that is trapped on Jabba's palace. Those scenes are kinda nice. It made me remember of the bar scene from The New Hope. There is a bunch of different aliens, there is a music in the background. It's this really dark place, and I kinda liked the design of it. I still didn't understood the rescue plan though. I don't know, like, I still don't know what they were trying to do in there, because we had like Lando disguised as a guard. Then we had the 2 droids that went to the palace, like they entered it from the front door and just gave it Luke's message to Jabba and got captured. And then we have Leia and Chewie also trying to get into the palace, but like, everyone gets captured sooner or later, and even Luke that appears later, he also gets captured. So I still kind of didn't understood the what the actual plan was. I read some stuff that say that the plan was to get captured. So when they get to the execution site, everyone would be there. So they in a open space, and it would be easier to fight against Jabba's guards, and it would be easier to escape. But the movie does not make a good job at explaining that. So we had to search for it and read a bunch of fan theories to understand what was going on in there. Um, so after the escape, there is like the main cast gets split again, and we have a part of it in the Endor Moon, and while Luke is with Vader and the Emperor. I know that some people have problems with the Ewoks, but I, well, I think they are quite nice. The costumes work, as I said on the Caravan of Courage video. Um, at any of the moments that there is an Ewok on the screen, I catched myself thinking that there is someone inside those costumes. So the costumes work really well. It appears to be an alien and not someone wearing funny clothes. So for me, it works. Um, Also, another thing that I read after watching that movie is that they wanted to make a Wookiee planet, but since Wookiees are bigger, they would have to spend a lot more money on the costumes, so they just cut it in half and called it Ewoks. Um, but then after I read that, I couldn't stop thinking about why they just didn't made human rebels. So instead of having Ewoks, we could just have normal human rebels on that planet. Like it could have been like a rebel base, and now you don't have those fur costumes. So you would have what's you would have saved even more money, and it would still work. And also, if there was human rebels, we wouldn't also have like people asking how the Ewoks, a like tribal race, how could they defeat the stormtroopers? So you would have saved money, and people wouldn't be asking about how those little guys with spears and rocks were able to fight back against the troopers. But like for me, they didn't bother me that much. So it's just these little things that I couldn't stop thinking about after I researched about this movie. So going to the look plot, I don't know. Those scenes to me were kind of boring. Because it's just Luke on the with the Emperor and Vader, and the Emperor trying to convince Luke to join the dark side. Which I already knew that wouldn't happen. So this scene was just kind of boring. Don't really know why, but if I had to guess, I would say that it was because I already knew that Luke wouldn't go to the dark side. So yeah, I think that's it. I don't like there is not much to talk about this movie. Like it's alright. I can see why people like it, but I don't know. Maybe like if there was not a there wasn't a second Death Star, maybe if they made the Emperor scenes kind of different, I would have enjoyed it um, a little bit more. But the way they did it is just kind of repetitive on the Death Star and kind of boring on the Emperor scenes. Um, but yeah, the final lightsaber battle, it's alright. Like, and Vader's um, I forgot the word again. um, and the moment Vader comes back to the light side, it's kind of interesting. The makeup is really nice on Vader's face, and yeah, I think that's kind of one thing that like I'm thinking about right now. It's that Vader didn't became one with the Force like Obi-Wan and Yoda. Like those two just vanish. Like in at one moment they are alive, and in the other their body just um, disappear, and they become one with the Force. But with Vader, even though he on his final moments he neglected the dark side, his body still did it, just vanished. But um, this gave us that scene, the his funeral, which was kind of nice, like a nice little detail. When Luke is burning his father's body, um, there is probably an explanation for that, but it was something that didn't bother me enough for me to go after the answer for that. Also, another thing that I just remembered was the ghosts. Because at the end of the movie, Obi-Wan and Yoda's um, ghosts appear, and Anakin's ghost is also there. But I think on the original release, it was the old Vader's body that was in there. But after they released the DVD versions of this movie, after the prequels were made, they went back and changed the visuals to be the actor that played Anakin in the Revenge of the Sith, which is kind of a strange change, because like the last moments of Anakin as a good character was when he was already old, like it was in this movie. So why did his ghost um, became younger? Like I don't know if that's like kind of the answer that when he was younger was the last moment where he was a good person. Maybe that's the answer, maybe not. I would argue that not, because to me the final moments when he neglected the dark side, um, I don't know where I'm going with this one. It's like, yeah, it's a good movie. Just forget everything I talked so far. It's a kind of nice movie. It's just not for me, and that like it's the second Death Star. I can't stop thinking of that. They could have made a lot of um, different stuff, just um, but they just decided to do it bigger and scarier. So yeah. Besides that, it's kind of nice. Not my favorite on the trilogy, which is The New Hope, and then comes The Empire Strikes Back, but this one is up there. I just don't want to be much harsh on it, because it's a good movie. It's just these little details that bother me. Um, so yeah, that's the ending of the originals. So now on to the sequels.